For the last couple weeks, and today included, we've been talking about gifts of Christmas, right? The Magi gave gifts to Jesus, so that's a Christmassy thing to do, is to give gifts. And we've been talking about specific gifts, really, that we receive from God. And we looked first at the gift of hope, and then we looked at the gift of peace last week, and today we're going to look at the gift of joy. And I'm not going to dwell too much on, what joy is, because we've really looked at that in depth just recently. But I want to look at kind of barriers that we might have of receiving that joy. And what do I mean by barriers? Well, at this time of the year, we're supposed to have, that peace, right? We're supposed to have the joy of Christmas. And I remember just last night, I'm looking at this storefront. And it's defining joy for me there. It's saying, the joy of Christmas is here, 50% off. Isn't that great? I just thought, man, what is it with this world? And, oftentimes at this time of the year, the opposite's true, right? There's no joy to be found. There's no peace to be found. A glaring example of how brutal this time of year can be happened 5 years ago, back in an area of New Jersey. You guys probably remember the news story. It was a Walmart. The scene was a Walmart, and it was the beginning of the Christmas shopping season, Black Friday. And there were 2,000 people outside this Walmart, and they broke down the doors just before it opened and stampeded in, and they killed a Walmart employee, trampled him to death. Yeah, just from walking over him or pummeling him, And, what is the deal? Where's the Christmas joy? Where's the peace? It's just amazing that, somebody would die because they got to go in and get, 20% off on a whatever. It's just nuts. And I don't know about you guys, but do you feel it even, kind of going up and down the streets? You see people driving, and the driving is just that much more intense. I don't know about you, but I've received the modified Boy Scout sign, if you know what I mean, that one finger sign. I've received that a lot more this time of the year than normal. From people that are, they got to get where they got to get, and they got to get what they, all this stuff. So as I look at it, and I'm victim to this stuff too. I get in my mode, I get in my track, I got to get where I'm going, and I get caught up in this stuff, and I'm sure many of you do too. And I think to myself, well, what's the barrier? What's the problem? Why can't I experience at this time of the year when you're supposed to experience joy and peace and hope and love? Why can't we do that? So I thought we'd look at a story. If you take out your message notes, you'll see today that they are very simple. There are no fill-ins. There's no nothing here. It's just a basic story, and it is the classic Christmas story from Luke 2 about the birth of Jesus. And I think there's a few things that we can learn from this story about how to receive these gifts that God wants us to have, these gifts that are good gifts. It's better to have peace than war. It's better to have hope than hopelessness. It's better to have joy than depression. Okay? So, if you take your notes, read along with me, and we'll read over this story, and we're going to look at it. We're going to develop this story just a little bit here this morning. It says in Luke chapter 2, verse 1, "And it came to pass in those days that a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be registered." That is, registered so that they can be taxed. So it's tax season. "This census first took place while Quirinius was governing Syria. So all went to be registered, every one to his own city." So the deal is wherever you were in the Roman Empire, you had to go to the place, maybe not of your exact birth, but the place where your family was from. Where all of your family, that was kind of your hometown. You had to go back to your hometown, okay? So this is a great inconvenience, okay? A lot of people moving around, okay? So that's what's going on. Joseph, of Joseph and Mary fame, also went up from Galilee. Now Galilee's up north from their hometown, which is Bethlehem, quite a ways. So he went up from Galilee, out of Nazareth, into Judea to the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David. So both he and Mary actually were of the house and lineage of David, which David was the king of Israel way back when, before their time. And so they had to go back to that town for this tax season, okay? It says, now Mary, his betrothed wife, was with child. So it was that while they were there, her days were completed for her to be delivered, to have the baby. And she brought forth her firstborn son, wrapped him in swaddling cloths, and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. Now, that, if everybody's heard this story over and over and over again, and it sounds, because of the familiarity, I think it sounds sweet. Oh, they laid the little baby in a manger, and he had these swaddling cloths and such. Well, they were just strips of cloth, nothing big, because Joseph and Mary were poor. And does anybody know what a manger is? It is what?
Cave.
No, not really. A manger is... They were probably in an area where a cave was, because that's kind of probably where the barn was.
They stocked all the livestock.
Yeah, it's where all the livestock was. A manger is actually a feeding trough. That's what a manger is. In some Bible translations, it actually translates it a feed box. So the Lord of Glory, the God of the universe, taking on flesh, was laid in a feed box. You know, they cleared out the slop for whatever they were feeding and laid baby Jesus there. So this is a poor scene, And they had to do this because there was no room for them in the inn. Now we'll get back to that in just a moment. But to finish the story here, it says, now there were in that same country shepherds living out in the fields, keeping their watch over their flocks by night. And behold, an angel of the Lord stood before them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were greatly afraid. So all the glory of this angel appeared, and it just knocked their socks off. They were frightened down to their core. Okay, and then the angel said to them, "Don't be afraid. Do not be afraid. For behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which will be to all people." So that was what he came for. This angel. Hey, I've come to bring you great tidings, good tidings of great joy. All right. Now, notice they were given this. If we were to read on in this story, we'd find out that they dropped everything. Well, they're sheep. What do they have? They dropped all that, and they went into Bethlehem to see this baby. Can you imagine a bunch of shepherds out in the field? They're going to go see a baby. It's like, well, what? How often does that happen? But so it must have made quite an impression upon them, this angel, to go see this baby. And they had this Christmas joy. They had this joy, and undoubtedly they had things that went along with it: hope, peace. They had those other things. But back up to this one line, and I kind of want to camp on this line, because remember, I'm trying to figure out now why it is we can't appropriate peace and joy and happiness and all those things that we should have at this time of the year. And it says at that last line of that second paragraph there, that they laid him in a manger. They were out in the barn because there was no room for them in the inn. Now, that's an unfortunate translation, that word "in" there. It's kataluo is the Greek word, I think. I might not be saying that right. But that word in Greek actually means guest room. And many of the other translations translate it as such. It's a guest room. And so the image of an inn is kind of like one of, okay, there's this hotel there in Bethlehem, which was a suburb of Jerusalem. It was way out there. At the time, it probably had a population of a few hundred people at best, okay? So the idea that there's this Motel 6 there is probably not all that accurate, okay? But that's often what is thought because of this word "inn." But really it's guest room. And then you further think about the situation. You think about, okay, Joseph and Mary are coming to the town of their lineage, the town of where their family is. Well, undoubtedly, they're probably going to be with family, right? I mean, when you go to your hometown, who do you stay with? You stay with family. So more than likely, they had family there, and they were going to go and stay at their house. But now consider the situation. Imagine for yourself that you're this family member that lives in Bethlehem, okay? And the tax has been called by Caesar Augustus. That means all your family gets to come home. Well, first thing, taxes. Who likes taxes? Taxes are always bad news. So they're in a bad mood because of that. Then, secondly, they've got this problem of all this family descending upon them. They were of the line of King David, so undoubtedly there was a huge amount of family involved. And you have all this family. How fun is that to have family just descend upon you? Okay. Third thing is that this Joseph and Mary, they were quite the young couple. They weren't married. She was pregnant. there was probably some shame there. Even later on in Jesus' life, as he's arguing with the Pharisees, they knew about the story of his origin, and they actually kind of accused him. They kind of did sideways jabs at him when they argued with him, and they'd say, well, we weren't born of fornication. We weren't born illegitimately. So it was known, and undoubtedly it was known by the family. So imagine you got the chaos of all the family coming, taxes to be paid, and then you've got, the Joseph and Mary couple that, from your understanding can't keep it in their pants, and, they're pregnant. What do you do with them? Well, they ain't getting the guest room, even though she's pregnant, even though she should probably get the best room. You're ashamed of them. You're disappointed in them. You're going to send them out to the barn. So that's kind of my read of it. And really, from their point of view, those are probably pretty good excuses to not make room. And I just wonder in my own life, and in the lives of every one of us, what excuses we might have to not make room for Jesus in our lives. We don't have time, we don't have space, we don't have room. And I guess I got a question for all of us. What is it that makes it so that you don't have room for God in your life? Because if God comes in your life, you'll have joy, you'll have hope, you'll have peace, you'll have all these things. But have you made room? And if you haven't made room for Him, what have you made room for? What have I made room for? What do I fill my life up with? What's taking up the space so that there's no room for God? This is a question for you to answer. Maybe there's plenty of room for God in your life. I don't know. If you're short of peace, maybe not. I see something else here between these two groups, though. You got, if I'm correct about my read of this inn, and I am reading a lot into that, that it's family and all this stuff. But even if it's an innkeeper, the classic kind of view of this, that there's no room, I see that there's a vast difference here between those people and the shepherds. The shepherds leave their flocks and go to see the baby. The people at the inn or the guest room, the family, kick them out into the barn. Right? Big difference. What's the difference?
The angel king.
The angel king. Yeah, that makes the difference, because the shepherds had the right idea about who this little baby was. If I'm right about their suspicions that Mary and Joseph were fornicators, the child was illegitimate, they had a preconceived notion about who this baby was going to be. But the shepherds had a better idea of who he was going to be. In other words, what causes the lack of room, I think, in many cases, is a misconception about who God is, a misconception about who Jesus is. And one of the very first misconceptions there can be is, God doesn't even exist. Right? That's a misconception. I don't believe that he even exists. Therefore, there certainly is no room for him. I'm not going to make room in my life for a fairy tale. Another misconception is that God is cruel. He's evil. He wants to do harm to me. Let me tell you, the Bible in no way says that. The Lord is good. Taste and see that the Lord is good is what the Scripture tells us. He is good, and good all the time. And He loves those who love Him. And if you make just but a little bit of room for Him, it says in John that He will come in. He and His Father will come in, and they'll make their home with you. It says that in John chapter 14. The Father and Jesus will make their home with you if you will but let them in. God is good. Another concept, a misconception about God is His commandments. Oh, His commandments are onerous. His commandments are kill joys. The commandments are designed to kill my joy, not create joy. It's all the thou shalt nots. Well, I don't know that that's really true either. I really believe that the commandments are for our benefit. They are for our benefit. And the reason I can say this is I look particularly at the fifth commandment. Anybody know what the fifth commandment is of the 10 commandments? Close. It's honor your mother and father. And that commandment is the first commandment, it says, with a promise. And the promise is, if you honor your mother and father, you'll live long in the land. Or as the New Testament translates it, it will go well with you all the days of your life. In other words, you obey this command, it'll go well with you. Well, I think that tagline can be attached to any commandment. Don't lie, so that it goes well with you. Don't steal, so that it goes well with you. Don't commit adultery. Don't murder. Don't all these things. And do all these things. Love your brother. Love your enemy. Love your neighbor. Do all these things that it may go well with you. That it may go well with me. You know, when I obey the commandments, it goes well with me. It doesn't go bad. That's a misconception to think that the commandments of God take away my joy, that they kill my joy. So all these misconceptions. And I guess I got another question for you. What misconceptions might you have about God that prevents you from making room for Him in your life? What are those misconceptions? It's hard to know because they're misconceptions, right? How can you know what your own misconceptions are? I have a remedy for that. It's called prayer. I pray to God regularly that God would open my eyes, that He would let me see things and see myself as I really am, as He sees me. And He answers. He answers. It's a process. It happens slowly because I'm not ready to see all the things that He sees. But slowly and surely over my life, He's shown me what I'm really like, and He's shown me how much I need His commandments, and He's shown me all these things, and He's corrected misconceptions that I've had about Him, misconceptions I've had about the world, misconceptions that I've had about other people, my own nature. All these misconceptions that I have. And He's clearing those things up. And the more I make room for Him, the more these misconceptions get cleared up. So, it's a short message today. The two main answers, take them with you. The two main answers, if you want joy, peace, hope, all these things that God offers to us, not just at Christmas, but all through the year, you got to do two things. You got to make room for Him, and you've got to erase some of those misconceptions that you might have about Him. Work towards that so that you can make room for Him. Because nobody wants to make room for a toad, right? And if you believe God's a toad, you're not going to make room for Him. So work at those misconceptions that you might have. I'm going to continue to work on my misconceptions of God and get a more accurate view of Him and make room for Him. So I hope this Christmas season and into the new year that anyone listening to this would make room for Jesus, that they wouldn't be like that family or innkeepers that didn't have any room for Him. Imagine if they knew who He was. Imagine if they had no misconceptions. Man, they would have probably put Him in their best room. So I recommend the same for you. Put Him in the best room of your life. Thank you.